All right, so this is going to be called RS WebSocket, Rust WebSocket KIPC. So Rust WebSocket and KIPC server. Maybe it should be WSKIPC RS in Rust. Is that why I have how about WSKIPC RS? Because I have a WSKIPC hi somewhere. I don't think it's live here, but I think at work I have that repo. So this is a work project. I would normally not stream stuff that I'm doing for work, but this has no, this is a proof of concept and has no connection to anything I'm doing. There's no proprietary information here, basically. So I feel fairly comfortable putting this on the open internet. The one part that, so certainly the Rust and WebSocket server, that's completely generic. And to be fair, I could probably Google this right now, find a simple example, and just copy and paste it. That's how I would normally do it, right? And probably there's a tutorial. The thing is called Tokyo Rust, right? An asynchronous Rust runtime, and then there's something to do with networking in here. Runtime, hyper, HTTP client and server supporting, does it have WebSockets? I don't know. Here's some gRPC client and server. Here's reliable clients and servers, tower components. I don't know anything about this, right? So I'm fairly comfortable with Rust. I have a Rust project called Bex that I've been working on for quite some time. I'm not a guru. I could not explain all of the intricacies of, I could not verbalize my understanding of like lifetimes and all of the borrowing rules, but I get by and I don't tend to be as confused as I used to be. But I probably haven't gotten, I would say, I have not really achieved like a conscious competence. That's from a learning, like a model of learning where I think conscious competence precedes unconscious competence. But sometimes I think in programming, you get used to the way things work and you achieve some unconscious competence at things before you could verbalize how to do it. For example, how do you tie your shoes? You know how to do it. Can you put it into words? Maybe if you've taught a kid how to do it. But there are a lot of things you know how to do that you can't verbalize. And I think I've achieved that kind of competence in Rust. I can usually predict what's going to happen and I can usually understand what the compiler is telling me, but I probably could not currently write a book or even give a good lecture on like the rules of Rust. In attempting to do, I would struggle to verbalize a lot of rules and then realize, oh, there's more for me to learn. And of course, that's the whole idea. You want to really learn something, you teach it to somebody. That's part of the benefit I get out of these streams. But all that is to say that I'm not I'm not an expert at Rust. I'm okay at Rust. And I have written multiple not implemented like the WebSocket protocol, but I've used libraries and made a little server that does the kind of thing that I'm about to do. And in fact, I wrote something that was a little web server in Python that had these two protocols built in, KIPC and a WebSocket server, so that you could have a web browser talking to K, the language we use at work, over KIPC, but sending that first. So you have HTML and JavaScript in your web browser talking through over a WebSocket to a Python server that is then talking KIPC to and asynchronously. So it's sending a message, and then sometimes later it gets a message back, and then it can send the message over the WebSocket to the client, the HTML client. And so you get this two-way conduit between the JavaScript on the front end and the K on the back end, and then this Python thing on the middle end, right? The middleware. Oh, middle end is a joke, obviously. So that's what I want to do, is make a little Rust server that talks KIPC. And so then plug it into whatever you want. So the WebSocket part, I imagine I could just download from a tutorial somewhere. I bet if I'm not going to, just as a proof of existence, I bet this would say Tokyo Rust WebSocket example. And I imagine this will turn up a result. Here's the WebSockets. I don't know what this is, but this came up first, so it's probably something to do with what I'm looking for. Okay, I don't know what a tungstenite is. Lightweight, stream-based, future-based tungstenite, okay. Does that mean there are other kinds of tungstenites? I don't know. All right, so tungstenite is a WebSocket library. Okay, so now I know one thing about WebSockets in Rust, right? And we know there's a Tokyo WebSockets, and then we know there's something called warp. Which one is it? Okay, so there's multiple ones, and somebody is dealing with overchoice, and they're trying to figure out which one's the best. Warp WebSockets and Tokyo actors. I don't know. I know what actors are, and maybe I don't. Again, I couldn't verbalize it, but to me, an actor is like, what is an actor? I don't know. I don't know. It's like it's something like a process that sends messages. So almost like an object that's a process, right? But I don't know. I don't know if that's like an accurate definition of the actor. I couldn't say I've done any actor-oriented programming. So here's WebSockets in Rust, and it basically, I could probably LogRocket. I have no idea what LogRocket does. I think they help developers log their applications and get information about it, like with telemetry. I see their name often, so like I have this vague awareness of them. And usually when they publish something, their developer relations people are pretty good, and so they put good stuff on their blog. So I bet if I click that link, even though it's from 2020 and it's 2023 right now, I would expect that this would probably give me something useful. I see it is using this warp thing, and warp still seems to exist from the things, but that tells me that ChatGPT has seen all this as well, right? So it's crawled the web and it's looked at all the millions and zillions of web pages in the world, billions of web pages. So it should know this. So let's not look at this. Let's just make it. All right, so we're going to add a README file, and that will make that line there. Ignore template for Rust. That will fill in a thing, and I pretty much always make things under the MIT license. Again, this is for work, but is it really? This is not production code for work. This is learn how to do something for, again, no trade secrets or anything. Oh, I was going to say that I did write a Python KIPC server, and if I get that far tonight, what I'll probably do is I'll ask ChatGPT to make the WebSocket thing for me and just follow its guidance and see what happens. And then rather than, because it's not going to know, I could ask it to implement a KIPC server in Rust, but I don't think that's going to happen. So what I thought I would do is I would just paste in the Python code. And so that would be sharing some code that is technically owned by my employer. It has no trade secrets, no proprietary information. The KIPC protocol is widely available and has been in existence for many years up on the kx.com website, and has remained stable as far as I know through like many versions of K. So I have there probably exists other Python KIPC implementations. I could probably download one from the internet, but so I will choose to instead use my code. And I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong to my employer by doing that, and I don't think they're going to take any issue with it. So I'll take that small risk. And I guess technically they could fire me for it, but I will cope. I'm not worried about that. I feel very valued at my company. So we've seen that there's things called warp, and just from a quick Google search, we've seen that there are things called warp and Tokyo and tungstenite and all these other things. Let's make a web server in Rust. Tell me, what do I ask it? I'm gonna put my little head over here so I'm not blocking the chat. Oh, maybe I'll put it this way. Okay. Oh, there you go. Profile. And can I maybe we should make this a little bigger? Let's make a WebSocket server in Rust. I'm thinking This is silly, but I'm thinking that if I put my head over here, then I'm going to be moving it back and forth when I switch to the code. But I bet I can just I'll put the code sidebar over here for tonight anyway. I could have just moved this thing over there. I already did or you can't see that. I could have just moved this thing over here. I'm already hiding the text of my chats, right? Or the names of my chats. All right, so let's make a web server in Rust. And I did that with a little extension here called Firefox called Stylus. That I just discovered tonight. So then you just click it. I just pointed at this thing, and then I figured out what the name of it was, and I wrote a one-line CSS thing for chat openai.com, and it hid that for me. All right, so let's make a WebSocket server in Rust. Is that sufficient for a prompt, or do I want to add more? How about I definitely what are the or maybe like what library do you recommend? What crates do you recommend? And see if it finds anything. You want to use the following crates: Tokyo. All right, so now you can see it's typing, right? This is how it predicts stuff. Here's the stop button. You can stop it if you don't want to hear what it's saying. All right, so to create a WebSocket server in Rust, use Tokyo. Event-driven, non-blocking I/O platform, blah, blah, blah. Tungstenite. Okay, so it wants to use Tungstenite. WebSocket library, both client and server, that provides easy and efficient WebSocket handling. Here's the crate. Tokyo Tungstenite. This crate provides Tokyo bindings for the Tungstenite library. Okay. Hyper is a fast and correct HTTP 1 and HTTP 2 implementation for Rust. You may need this to serve your WebSocket server over HTTP. I do. Because you want a WebSocket, you don't just want WebSockets, you want the HTTP part as well, so that you can serve a page that says, send me the web page. SerDes. So SerDes, I know about SerDes. It's serialization and deserialization. SER for serialization. DE for deserialization. You can use it to serialize and deserialize data between your WebSocket server and clients. That's actually reasonable. And then you would want the JSON plugin. And that way you can just send it JSON and it will translate it to Rust. And in fact, I haven't asked it about KIPC, but KIPC is basically a serialization format. Like the serialization, K ships with or includes a serialization format. In our version of K, it's called DB and then BD. DB is data from binary, and one is binary from data. The other one is, yeah. And it's underscore DB and underscore BD, and they're inverses of each other. And yes, it would make perfect sense to implement that as a Rust using SerDes in Rust. With SerDes, you write your data structure and then you define what your types are. So you would write in like a Rust enum or whatever. And then you would say, I want to serialize this. And it's a procedural macro. So you put an attribute on your structure or your type, and it generates the code to serialize and deserialize it for you. So this is actually a good suggestion in general for talking over JSON, but it could also be used to talk KIPC. So rather than writing a KIPC library, we could write a KIPC plugin, just like, so SerDes KIPC, just like there's SerDes JSON. So that's actually an interesting idea. Did I ask it to? I said, help me again. No, I didn't ask it for any code. It is volunteered code for me. Use Tokyo. It's Tokyo, right? Tokyo, but I see Tokyo because it's IO, right? So Tokyo, I'm sure it's a pun, right? Tokyo. Use Tokyo net. I'm going to call it Tokyo because that's what I see. That's what my brain sees. Use Tokyo net, TCP listener, TCP stream, Tungstenite. Okay, these are importing these names into this space from these libraries. Now it didn't give me a cargo.toml file. So let's ask for it. First of all, let's ask the standard question. First, can you double check that? Do you double check that code? Second, can you give me the cargo.toml file or the instructions for generating it? and setting up the repo. Setting up a Git repo for the project. All right, so I've already set up a Git repo for it. Let's see what it says. Apologies for the confusion. That's a standard response to any. I mistakenly included the hypercrate, which is not necessary for this simple example. Okay, did it? Yeah, okay, so it did ask about hyper being the HTTP server. And so it only has a WebSocket server. Right, so I asked it to double check it. Okay. And I bet it just changed that one thing, right? The WebSocket server example provided earlier is correct, except for the unnecessary hyper import. Does it actually import hyper? I don't see that it imported hyper anywhere, did it? Right, let's put this into, while it's generating code, let's put this into the repo. Okay, so I made a, did I actually commit that or save that? Yeah, where's my? All right, so we have this. Let's check this out. So we have that file now. And it created this README file here, and then a license, which I said was MIT. Blah, blah, blah. And then I've checked it out now. So let's open that in open folder. And that is what is it? What do I call it? WSKIPCRS. WSKIPCRS. Folder. Now my head's in the wrong place. All right. We don't need this. And I said I was going to move this to the right-hand side, and you do that by doing what? Move primary sidebar left. Okay. And okay, now let's see what it says to do to set up the repo. It's going to do like cargo, I think it's cargo init or something like that. So let's see what it says. So I wanted to put this into the code just to see. It won't run without cargo, but I'm curious. So what do I want to call this? This is just websock demo.rs. I will not keep this very long, but I just say git add demo.rs. And then we'll paste in the thing. I don't think it changed anything, right? Because it says it removed a line. See, it's hallucinating that a line exists. I mistakenly included the hypercrate, which is not necessary for this simple example. It included that in the list of things that it thinks that I might want, but it didn't actually write any code that used it. I think this has not changed. I think it hallucinated that it had a line and hallucinated that it made a change. All right, so if I paste this in now, and I say git status, it did modify this. Okay, no, it didn't. I just happened to hit enter. I just happened to hit enter there. No difference whatsoever. So it thinks it made a change. It didn't. So that's what you get with ChatGPT. All right, but let's see. Did it give me a cargo toml file? All right, so I say cargo new Rust Websocket Servers. Git init. Well, you don't need to do cargo new. I believe that is accurate, but this is what I want. You just want this file. That would have created that file. So 2018 Rust editions. What are editions? I think there's a later edition. What is the latest? What is the latest Rust edition? 2021, yeah. 2021. So we said RS. No, it's WS. It's up here in the upper left. WSKIPC, which you would think it would notice. RS. and Tokyo, tungstenite, tungstenite. Okay. All right, so now if I type cargo run, did it actually run this code? All right, so we move demo dot, so git move demo.rs to source main. Oh, I see, because it's not. So move demo. What? Oh, no, because the source doesn't exist. So make dir source, and then now git move. All right, everything's good. And if I say cargo run, it should download all those things and run that file. Move this away from my head. It's not responding to me clicking. There we go. Ah, it doesn't want me to move this window. There we go. Fetching creates.io index. Solving deltas. All right, so while this is working, let's see, what can we ask? This is all stuff that we've already done, because I set it up at GitHub. So I was just curious what it would tell me to do. All right, so we're going to run this code and see what happens. But while we're doing that, let's say, okay, I actually do want to use hyper. I actually do want to use hyper. I'd like to serve a default page on port, let's say 7777, default over HTTP on port 7777, and have it show a small a small input form so a small chat window. There should be an input box at the bottom. What happened there? At the bottom, where I can type text, and when I press enter, it should send a message. It should send a message over the WebSocket. Then the WebSocket server should respond by sending the same string back, but backwards. But reversed, or but in all uppercase. And the UI should display all this like the chat client. Like a simple chat client, a simple make it. All right, so you can use the following code, blah, 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 hyper body, hyper HTTP status code, standard convert infallible. I don't know what that is. Include string. Oh, include a indexed HTML as a hard-coded string. And a request. All right, so while that was running, let's see, did we load anything over here? We'll see what it said in a minute. So on 9,000, we're going to open up a new channel. I don't think anything happens here, right? Because we have to have a WebSocket client. So let's just look at the code. Let's just look at what this code is. It compiles and runs, so that's a good start. Here's the main function. It's async, so I think that's why we have to decorate that, because you can't just run an async function normally. We gotta wait. It is serving data. It is serving something, because if I just put in a different number, yeah, it never connects, right? So this connected and immediately reset. So I believe if I look at the inspector here, now let's dock this way, dock to bottom, or we'll dock it to the right, because otherwise that's where my head is. Plus we get the little split screen view. If I try again, get the network level. No payload for this request. Headers. It didn't even have a response. No response. Okay, so I just close the connection. What does it say? Panicked, failed to accept WebSocket connection. Okay, so it didn't even return a HTTP error, because this is not an HTTP server. This is pure WebSockets. But WebSockets are generally, in my understanding, every time I've ever seen it, they actually serve like a subset of the HTTP protocol, and then I think it's called upgrade, or there's like a command you send that converts the HTTP connection to a WebSocket connection. So this was a very short thing. So it did give me an echo server. So let's see what it thinks it's doing. And again, this is the first round, the first and second round of second code that it gave me that were exactly the same, even though they thought it was removing the line. All right, so this is the localhost port 9000. Bind to the address, wait for that to happen asynchronously. Now is right that we're listening on this port, which should have been the first line of the thing. Yet listening on this on here on the address. So it's just a string. And then while it gets code, or while it gets connections, I guess, spawn a Tokyo, whatever that is, or actually Tokyo spawn this thing, spawn this little worker function thing, this asynchronous task. So oh, no, yeah, accept connection with stream. So we get a stream asynchronously, and then we spawn this asynchronous function that processes this stream. So now we have a TCP stream that came from Tokyo, and now we're going to, so TCP is like TCP/IP, I guess, right? So I guess TCP, transmission control protocol, is that what it's called? And then internet protocol. And so now we're going to take this and pass it to this tungstenite thing, or the Tokyo tungstenite adapter, accept async stream, await, failed to accept WebSocket connection. And is that what we are getting? Yeah, so that failed. Probably because we're not initiating the proper handshake to make WebSockets happen. So it got this far, and then it panicked. And then it looks like what ChatGPT thinks you should do, and Rust seems to agree, because it didn't give me any. Did it even get any errors? So the only thing it didn't need, the only warning I got was that this one line is not actually used. It was unnecessary to import this function, or whatever it is, probably a type. And then, so this is all accurate, right? As far as Rust is concerned. This at least compiles, and all these are functions that exist and pass the type checker here. So the protocol is correct. It may or may not be doing something sensible, but so far it seems reasonable. So expect is like we get an optional thing, like this may or may not return a value. And expect is basically unwrap it, and if it fails to unwrap, if you expected some value and you got a none instead, then you fail. So you expect it to be there, and if it wasn't there after the await, then you print this message, and that's what happened. So it panicked. Missing connection upgrade header. Yeah, missing. Yeah, so there was no upgrade from a HTTP to a WebSocket, which is what I expected because the browser doesn't know that it's oh, actually. I wonder what happens if I just do that. Nothing. But you can't just put a WebSocket right up there. Yeah, so the protocol is Firefox is going to send the HTTP request, and you can't just put a the browser wouldn't know what to do with a WebSocket client. I bet there's a WebSocket, say Firefox WebSocket client. WebSocket Weasel. 13 votes. All right, well, I try. Let's see what it does. See what it does. All right, I'm going to trust this thing. I'm going to trust these 12 people to install this. More H Goldcar is not going to install a terrible piece of code on my site. This is the moment where I got infected with malware. Okay. All right, so for an extension. So, all right, so let's just paste that in. I have no idea. I'm just guessing how to use this thing. No, I want this page, right? So if I just say WSS or W, I don't think it's secure in any way. So I bet if I just say this, hello, what happened? Oh, did I have to say send? I did. Okay, and it echoed. All right, so it worked. All right, so ChatGPT, it passed the 2 hurdles, right? Like it actually generated it generated some Rust code that did what I asked it to do. All right, so I gave it I basically just said help me. So it could have pulled this code exactly word for word off the internet anywhere, right? It could just have this code like in its memory. I can see, I don't know what's happening here, but I can see that I'm not finished. So continue, and please remember to start the response as a new HTML markdown block. So it fixes the syntax highlight. Let's see what it says. Hey, okay, fix that problem. Type your message here. Okay, nice. Every other time it's resumed, I've asked it to resume in the middle of writing code. It failed. I'm gonna inspect this while it's doing that. What I want it to do is make that bigger. So if I just make all this stuff inside of here, how about just, I wish you could just jump to where the, maybe you can do this, jump to where the size is being generated. I don't want to just zoom because it's making everything. How about if I just go to the HTML font size larger, X large. But it gets overridden. So where are you? Oh, okay, so font weight larger. There we go. All right. There we go. Okay, so I probably could have done that with the style thing. All right, so now I've asked it to. It would be nice if it had like a Way to navigate between these things. Maybe you can. All right, to create an HTTP server using Hyper. So now let's just paste this into double check that code, please. Let's just trust it for a minute. All right, so type your message. All right, so this is going to be called index.html. I'm not sure exactly where to put that. Index.html. I don't think it goes in the source directory, but we'll see. And then see what it gave me. So here we have some code that has some CSS on it. Again, I don't like, so first of all, I never indent a head. You can, but I always write my code like this. So you can see more of it, right? I know it's a weird style, but it's an unusual style, but you want to see more of it. Like what's the point of all this? Like why not put as much on the screen as you can? All right, so on close, WebSocket connection closed. On message, on close, these are the three things. This looks all right to me. At least looks very familiar. I also don't usually indent the body tag. Right. That way, you can indent the body if you want. On key down, I would put this on a new line. I don't want everything on one line. I want everything to fit on the screen, right? That's the chat window, get on video chat window, get input box. So chat window and input box. These IDs. Where's chat window and input box? Oh, here it is, okay. So here's the UI and then here's the script. Type your message here. Placeholder. This is actually good code, right? See? And then on key down, if they hit enter, that's the code for enter, send message. Or that's the return key. Send it to the website. This is perfectly reasonable. So ChatGPT has done well here with just this text file part. All right, and then this is indented a little further than I would normally do it. And this is indented a little further. Again, that's just my style for working on I like it for working on small screens, and I like it in general. I like to preserve vertical space. I don't have any problem with people who write code other ways. I've written code other ways. If people give me a coding standard, I will follow that coding standard. But when it's up to me, I've learned to write things this way. I'll probably also remove a bunch of these semicolons, but so far so good. All right, and back to the code here. Update this to return, okay. Cargo. I wonder if if it matters whether I know if it has to be that version. All right, so again, I'm not going to check it in, but let's just break this. Get status. I'm going to add source main.rs. Oh, nothing's changed, so it already is. Hello? Interesting. My camera just died. 1 second here. It said battery exhausted. But I have a new battery. I've never had that happen before. There's a very good chance that my camera will not turn back on. Or rather, it will turn back on just fine, but it will not be able to connect to OBS. the broadcasting software. All right, so I'm back on. Upside down. Connecting to. Oh, okay. It should be back in a second. There we go. All right, I got a green screen behind me. Magic of technology. All right, so luckily it reconnected. Okay, it's chopping my head off temporarily. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, sorry about that. I don't know if I think my audio was going through, but just in case it wasn't, my camera ran out of batteries. Okay. Ooh, this is my longest screen ever. Hang on a second. 1 second here. I just want to see if. Oh. Okay. Not relevant to the stream here. Okay, this has been 2 hours and 30 minutes now, and so I'm gonna have to. I always want to edit things, but you can't. I never wind up editing them. The stream. All right. So anyway, let's see. But at the very least, I should break this into 2 pieces. You know, maybe edit it a little bit. I don't know. Okay, so clearly I'm not going to get to KIPC tonight, so this probably will also be a multi-day stream, multi-day episode. Is this the new? Yeah, HTTP server. Okay, so here's the new code. And let's see what it changed. We'll copy this because it's up to date in Git right now. So I was going to add that, and then I saw that it was already done, so I don't need to do that. And I just cut something, so I have to repopulate my clipboard over here. And if I go to main.rs, paste. And before I try and run it, let's just say cargo, there's no test, but cargo run, or cargo build. And let's see if Rust finds any mistakes. No server in the root. So I'm curious what happens if I just paste this. If I just paste this error message in here. I'm not even going to give it any context. Let's see what happens. I'm going to. What is this? Apologies for the confusion. It's using. Interesting. So it says it's using an old version. Tungstenite X15. Futures hyper equals 0.15. What did it tell me to use? Hyper 14. So 15. And I think that's what it said before, right? Hyper request body response server. Did that actually change? Hyper, yeah, so that did not change. That's interesting. You just give it the error message. Cargo run. But it hallucinated a cargo 15 or a hyper 15. All right, so let's try. Okay, let me just give that error message again. I'm on ChatGPT 4, right? Yeah, model ChatGPT 4. I'm used to seeing a message here saying I can only do 25 messages per hour. Or per 3 hours, yeah. Currently has a cap of 25 messages every 3 hours. I'm surprised. I don't know why that's not there anymore. All right, what does it say? Seems I made a mistake regarding the hyper version. Late is indeed 14.x and use the following import statement in main.rs. All right, let's just double check. This is all the same, right? Nothing has changed here. See, this is the kind of stuff you have. It's hallucinating things. Now, I could go look on the web. I changed this. Let's put it back. That's the Rust edition. Shouldn't matter at all. 1.0 for tungstenite 15, 15, 3.7, 14. And then cargo run is going to give me that error again. And I'm just going to say same error as before. No server in the root. Same error as before. Same error as before. I apologize for the oversight. It appears the issue is not with the version of Hyper, but with the import statement in main.rs. Hyper server module. Please update the import. Okay, so now hyper server. It can figure this stuff out, but it doesn't, right? So something has to like actually run the code and check the code and then report the message. But it seems if you could set it up so that like your compiler could do a build safely, it's a little dangerous because like Rust macros can, I believe, contain any code that you want. They could execute things at compile time, right? But it seems like if you could convince the two to just talk to each other, things might go well. All right, cargo run. Could not find server in Hyper. Another mistake in the import statement. The correct import should include from Hyper server. Please update. That does not seem right, because that would be the same thing. Nothing's actually complaining about the presence or lack of presence of server. So let's just remove this line. Okay, again, so this is funny. This is not how I do programming, right? Use of undeclared type server. Okay, so there was such a thing. So on line 29 here, it was using such a thing. All right, so we're going to have to look at this, right? Because this is not... Like, why would it get this so wrong? Why would it get this so wrong? All right, so simple hyper server example, simple Rust Tokyo hyper server. All right, we'll go to the LogRocket thing. Fast and safe HTTP for the link. So we'll look at these two. Get started. So I'm wondering, okay, I could read this, figure out what's wrong. I'm trying to like model my process, right? Like, here's an example, right? Like I should be, say a junior developer has come to me and given me this code and they're saying it doesn't work. What's wrong? What I would tell them is I would do this search and I'd say, clearly this server thing doesn't exist. What's the right thing to do it? Where'd you get this idea for a server? Right? This is the code here. I'm going to take this code. So it says it's unstable. So it's entirely possible that that was a valid. Maybe it's got an out of date model of the world. Because in some semantic versioning, Rust crates tend to use semantic versioning quite a bit. And the rule is that anything before version 1, anything goes. There's no backwards compatibility or anything. So anything with a 0 is an unstable API to begin with. So I'm going to update ChatGPT here. And I'm going to tell it that this is their new example. The same way I would to a junior developer. Here is an updated example. Looks like Hyper has changed its API somewhat. Here is the new example code. Can you work this into your, here is the new example server, a code snippet. Can you work this into your version? And do I need to put this in Markdown? I'm not really typing Markdown because it doesn't know, but I think maybe it understands. Let's just leave it out. We don't need it. Following. So here, yeah. Let's just see what it does with that. Thank you for providing the updated example code snippet. I have now integrated it with the WebSocket server. The HTTP now server uses Hyper's updated API and serves the chat page on port 7777. See, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it being out of date and hallucinating. It's not ideal, but I'm not having to look up hundreds of. I'm okay with this. It's not ideal. It would be nice if it could go read the docs itself and update itself. But this is not horrible, right? This is, you could easily imagine somebody's working from a book and they say, I'm working on this example and the example from the book doesn't work and I'm never written code before, so I don't understand. And so HTTP body util, some new thing it's adding. And the student doesn't know why the code in the book doesn't work. You need to update it. But they don't know how to parse the error message. You would think this would. It's not able to diagnose why it's wrong. So it's hallucinating why it's wrong and guessing why it's wrong. All right, so let's add this thing and fix it. So cargo toml, add this new one. Don't know what it's for. Don't know anything about it. But notice it's not like, it's giving me the full code for the Rust stuff, but it's not like spamming me with many copies of the index.html or anything like that. All right, so main.rs, I'm just going to replace all this. And then let's see what status. So git diff source main. Because I've got this added here, it can tell me the diff between the two versions. You can see it did quite a bit of. Let's actually add let's undo that. And we'll go ahead and add the old version, right? So git add. So I haven't made a commit, but I've stashed this, right? So now the diff is going to go against that version of it. Which I think, copy code, I think this is the latest version again. Okay, so that got simplified. It doesn't use this response builder thing. It just says send the bytes from this string. Okay. Nice. Did it learn that from that snippet? Like, why did it change that? Full new bytes from hello world. All right, so that's exactly where it got it from. All right, so yeah, that looks like it really did integrate exactly. Like I don't know what the old example looked like, but it seems like it integrated it well. So let's see what cargo run says, or even just cargo build. HTTP body util. Did I call it that? Did I pay? Yeah, I think I did. Wait, no? Where do you get that from? HTTP body util. States IO. Is it the version number? Cargo add HTTP body util. It hallucinated the version number. There we go. Cargo test. Let's remove hyper. Well, that should work, right? Cargo update. Upgrade. Okay, cargo. List update is the one that. Oh, update dependencies get styles. Cargo build. Did this come from here? Use hyper server. There it is talking about server. Hyper service make function. Right, so this is a mix of things. Hyper service. Right, so let's just delete this. I can't blame ChatGPT for this. It's giving you a documentation for a version that isn't the latest the latest version, right? Am I wrong? Crates.io? Is it crates.io, right? And then it was hyper. 14.26. Documentation. Page. Like, I feel like that's. I said, does the latest version have the? Yeah, what's it complaining about? Hyper server. Hyper. On crate feature server only. You have to ask it to turn the server on. Tokyo version features equals server. Okay. It just yeah. ChatGPT Copilot is doing stuff now. We haven't seen much from Copilot tonight because I haven't been typing. I've been just pasting. Cargo build. Now this. Hyper server con. Hyper. See, actually, this. Okay, so now it's integrated this stuff from version 1.0 of Hyper, but I think it was correct before. So again, okay, so actually we just needed to do this in cargo. Please ignore that. Actually, please ignore that updated code example. We just needed to add to enable the server feature in cargo Tom. You don't need to. Right, so I'm not going to tell him that or tell it that yet. So let's just go back to the old code. So let's. I can just let's see. I'm thinking I can just restore it in. It would be nice if it had like version numbers so you could say this version worked. I bet this works now. This original version. Can I blame ChatGPT for this? Like that's a confusing situation. It's an unstable API. Maybe I can blame it for using an unstable API, but that's kind of part of working with Rust. Okay. Did it ever have bind? Okay. And does this one have bind in it? Actually, let's. It couldn't find this because server didn't exist, right? So let's actually add this new version. Let's actually do this rather than doing that. I think let's just put this back how it was. Okay. Let's see where we're at now. cargo build. Not found in this scope. In server con. See, it won't know this. It won't know how to help me with this. Let's just put on features equals full and see what happens. Maybe I'm disabling something else. Cargo build. Accept connection TCP stream. Because I thought I saw that before. Didn't I have a TCP stream earlier? I did. And so it lost something about TCP stream. But also this does not exist. It can't help me with this. This Rust is helping me with. So no HTTP1 in server. All right, what are the git status? I still have that git diff source main to rs. Like, where did it introduce this here? Previously, it was all right. So let's revert that. Just git status git restore source main.rs cargo build. Use hyper server. Async move. Okay, so I got to put the word async move on. Actually, I can just hit F8 and it'll take me to that spot. Oh no, why isn't this working? Failed to discover workspace. What's wrong with that? Cargo Tom, it's there. It doesn't like this. I no. Okay, I'm not gonna, it's probably because I didn't use cargo in it the right way. Yes, cargo. cargo check. No, you can't check the cargo toml. That's not helpful. It doesn't matter. I don't. This is degrading, but I mean, not degrading. It's my things are falling apart here. I just want to get this working right now. Async block is return here, main 25. So literally this line 25 just needs to have a async move. Okay. Not test, cargo build is what I meant, because there aren't any tests yet. And I don't need this WebSocket stream. So anyway, this seems to be working, and I have not really even, other than just, I've glanced at the code a little bit, but I really don't have a strong internal model of what code has been generated. But cargo run, I suspect everything's passing now, or everything's building now. And listening on, nope. Oh, okay, it does start that. Okay, so now, okay, first of all, let's run this again. It's listening on port 9000 and port 777. So this is, now we're back to something that it could have figured out. So I believe this still, yeah, that is still talking. It is working. It's uppercase now. Previously said echo hello. Now it says now it's responding with uppercase. But now if I go here, I bet I should get something. Oh, but no, because I'm on port 777. And if I say hello, I expect to see, yeah, upcase this. Okay, so the WebSocket stuff is working, but they're not on the same port. Do I ask ChatGPT to fix that for me? I can fix it myself, obviously. I can just change this to... It's actually not that easy because I want them to be on the same port. Do I want them to be on the same port? I expect them to be on the same port. Okay, so let's ask, that's a good question. This is grunt work now. Like, it should be able to figure this out. And revert to your previous code. I also needed this line to add the word move on this line. And then it worked. Now it seems to be working. Now it seems to be working. Is it possible, how about say, is it possible to put both the WebSocket server and the HTTP server on port 777 at the same time and have it upgrade, have it, no. Is it possible to serve both the HTTP and WebSocket parts on the same port? On the same port 7777? And so how? I'm almost positive the answer is yes, because I'm pretty sure that's how I've always done it in Python. So let's find out. And it's giving me the whole upgraded file. I like that, so let's add this to, we'll go ahead and add, upcase this. Yeah, so I'm gonna kill this, git status, git add source main.rs, cargo toml source index.html, git commit -m, first working version. serving on 2 ports. On 2 of WebSocket, of HTTP plus WebSockets on 2 ports. I'm obviously not going to get to, ooh, weird, on 2 ports. What's happening here? I think my window is too small. It's putting the cursor on the previous line of HTTP plus WebSockets on 2 separate ports. Okay. And I am going to go ahead and change this to 2021 version. And I'm going to change this to main.r. What's that going to change? I imagine this is already changing to 777 here, but let's see what it says. Don't I need to, so it didn't. Don't I need to update the job? Don't. Is there a patch? How about, is there a patch for the HTML? And while it's figuring that out, let's go ahead and put this in here. And the question is, what's changed? So we'll take this, put this in main.rs, checked in the working version. So we're, ooh. Looks like I'm not seeing a lot of changes over here. So that seems like a small change, actually. What got deleted? Main function. All right, so get diff. So it removed hyper service. And now it's using on upgrade, upgraded body request response server. Oh, okay, so it merged this a little bit. So it includes hyper upgrade. Okay. It changed the way it uses tungstenite. Now, handle request got a lot more complicated because it's asking, is it an upgrade request? Oh, I'm in the way, aren't I? Wrong one? I'll just come over here for a minute. And then, so if it's an upgrade request, then it's knowing about async move here. From raw socket. Wait. Okay, so this is all one block. And it's saying if it is an upgrade request, then get this on upgrade thing and basically add a callback. And then here's this return is exiting from move. There's the end of the spawn. I'm not sure if it's easy to read these. I guess it is. Okay. Man, I'm just being snarky. So here's an if, here's a spawn. Now we just return. So this exits this function, and then this is the else part. Okay, response builder. So here's where it was building a response builder. Here's the new thing. And it's adding a status code okay. For whatever reason, now it's status 200, which is HTTP okay, so that doesn't seem to matter to me. And then remove this HTTP server. So hopefully it's going to add a new HTTP server. Or maybe that was up top. Handle request. Oh, I see, because it's not just an HTTP server, it's HTTP and WebSocket server. Except it's still calling this, right? I think we have two async function mains now. Or no, this is part of a diff one. Where does it get an HTTP server from if we deleted async function HTTP server? I think this is it's gotten confused. Let's see, cargo test. I think it's gonna tell me something broke. Yeah. All right, so here, yeah, this just did not work, right? There's two copies of main. Is that because I pasted it in wrong? Or because it gave it to me wrong? Tokyo main. Okay, so I've done something wrong. I think I restored it with this, so let's try that again. But most of that is not my problem. Okay, so let me do this. So these are the full errors. His upgrade request. Okay. I'm just going to paste that code again. Can you double check? Can you double check? Tokyo tungstenite. Yeah, tungstenite handshake. And this was previously called Tokyo is upgrade request. Okay, that's plausible. So get status. So we're going to add this. And again, so we can diff that to the previous version. Tokyo tungstenite, Tokyo tungstenite, futures util, and hyper. And then we probably don't need this one. Features equals server, which is what I told it. Okay, so this is one more time, please. Well, I'm gonna paste this in and see what it happens, but do a double check everything and look for improvements. And then while we're doing that, while it's doing that, let's okay. So this part is code. And now, since I saved that before, we can say git diff and can't see. Okay, so that was the only thing it changed. It got rid of TCP listener, which I think is a mistake. But get status or cargo build. Tokyo tungstenite. So that could be a updating issue again. Tokyo tungstenite is upgrading. Let's actually look at the docs and see if there's a, how do you see all the features? Items. This seems to be a hallucination. It's like you have a junior developer on acid. Somebody made that observation, like they're taking hallucinogens. They're smart, but they're crazy. Handshake. Tokyo tungstenite. Handshake. There's an 18. We're on what version? Another old version, right? And it's probably this. Let's see. Cargo test. There's no tests. Rust tungstenite upgrade. Like it makes sense that it's ChatGPT is struggling with this because there doesn't seem to be a all right, so let's just, and I will go back to like simple WebSocket example with tungstenite and with Tokyo tungstenite. And let's just see. I'm trying. I didn't at this point. Like I'm starting to get familiar with the landscape here, and so the next step is probably start reading some docs and figure out what it is. I feel like this is probably a good place to stop because I'm not going to get. I'm okay with them running on separate. Okay, all right. Tokyo WebSocket. Here's an example. Okay. I think a few minutes ago I saw something called hyper-tungstenite. Yes, and this is it. Okay. Do I need? I think I need hyper-tungstenite. So let's tell it that and see if it can figure out if it knows about this. 5 months ago, so it might be too old. This might be too new. Let me give it this example. So there's this new thing called hyper-tungstenite. It looks like there's a new thing called hyper-tungstenite. Looks like there's a new thing called hyper-tungstenite. Still not working. So this code is still not working. It is still not working with the latest version. It looks like there's a new thing called hyper-tungstenite. Here is the example. Can you try integrating this? Can you try integrating this? I expect this to fail. Basically, we've got a fast, quickly changing API, and it's not a programmer; it's a pattern matcher. Like it's. I don't think it's going to be able to do this, but I didn't even really read this yet. But hyper. Oh, so maybe I'm telling it it's wrong when it actually is okay because it's updated everything. I didn't incorporate the check for improvements, so let's try that now. No, it still has. And find function is update. Okay. Yeah, that still is an issue. All right, I doubt it's going to fix this, but let's see. Like probably the thing to do now is actually read things. But let's see this. And what does it want from cargo toml? No, that's wrong. Add cargo, add hyper tungstenite. And I think futures is already in there. Futures. Cargo test is what I almost always type in, so I'm just used to typing that. But in fact, there are no tests, but it's okay. Ah, okay, almost there. That's an odd guess. Right, so get diff. I think that introduced something hallucinatory. or because I changed the version, or because it's using an old version. All right, what line is this? Cargo. The line that broke was line 48, so somewhere around line 48. Oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to sequence line around line 48. I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed soon. In the main function, so at the end here in the main, hyper is on what version? I don't want it to go there. I want it to go to dependencies. I want to see hyper 14. Hyper is on 14. Could be that hyper-tungstenite is old. It is depending on the hyper 14.4, so that looks like it's pretty close. Yeah, so I think I'm at the point where I need to start like reading the code and like figuring out exactly what's going on here. I'll paste in the error. Oh, like it really just this one error. The hyper server con. Hyper server con HTTP. Then there should be an HTTP new in here, right? HTTP. HTTP new. This should be correct. Server con HTTP. This is the latest. Create feature server only. It's full of hyper server con. Create feature server. in hyper feature server. If you don't need managed connections yourself, consider using the higher level server API. Hyper server con HTTP, it's there. Hyper version 14. Hyper version 14.26. 14.26. There's an enum variant, create tungstenite. One other, try using the variants enum. That's not right. This is really should be what it is. What is, my cargo locked to something? Wow, that's all kinds of weird stuff. Hyper. Okay, let's look at the code, like, because this thing seems to be hallucinating. Source. HTTP. No, I want hyper server. Oh, I need to give it another thing. Okay, so HTTP isn't there. And create server. Okay, so I need to say HTTP1 or HTTP2. All right, so let's do, wait, if I change this to full. How do you see what the features are? Features. Yeah, but not, that's not. Yeah, so I was hallucinating full. That's HTTP1 probably. So server and HTTP1. Oh no, it did work. Okay. Okay, did it tell me to do this and I missed it? I wasn't paying attention? It did. It says server stream. All right, so if I say server, so maybe stream, let's try that. But no, that's not what it wants. I don't want stream, I want HTTP2, HTTP1. Okay, so it did tell me something to update. And had I done that, I might have been alerted to the fact that something needed to be updated. It looks like that feature is called, so it looks like that feature is really called, looks like the feature, the hyper feature we need our server and HTTP1, not stream. But otherwise, this looks promising. I haven't tested it yet. All right. And then I was supposed to update index.html. I don't think I've touched that yet. So I can just start changing that now. Index.html. Oh, this is it. Ah, and it lost all my pretty formatting. That's okay. What is this? What the heck is VH? that what I said before? I was in pixels before. Okay. Viewport height and viewport width. So 80% of the viewport. Interesting. I've never seen that before. I guess I'm not up to date on all the CSS stuff. No, I'm not running anything. Cargo run. So I didn't change the Rust, and so gotta remove that line. Listening on port 7777. And so now we redo it. And we just say testing 1, 2, 3, and it should, yep, everything's working. Okay, so we have built a whole WebSocket server in Rust. I have no idea how it's working, but we've got it to compile, and now I can read it, and I have some idea of the structure, right? We got to this point. We have a working model. It's small. It's changed quite a few times. So let's see what we have here. Where's my outline? Looks like we have 3 functions. We have index.html, which is just reading that string into a string, reading that file into a string. This has shrunk considerably. We have a thing called handle request. Let's start at the main. We have main is Tokyo main. It is going to return either a result or an error. Or it's going to return either nothing or it's going to give an error. The result is either nothing or an error. We've hard-coded the address. We're listening on this. Oh, that's nice. It can print, and so it knows how to print itself. This has the display trait. Let listener equals Tokyo net TCP listener bind. So we bind to that thing and then we wait for it. And then this deals with the error. So basically, if this fails, then it returns the error. That's what the question mark means. I've never written an asynchronous Rust program myself, but I'm aware of the basic concepts. So now here we get the thing. This is the HTTP new. This is from that hyper-tungsten integration or crate. So basically, this is just okay. We set up Tokyo, so now we've got an event loop, and now we're gonna create a listener on this port that's going to listen to TCP/IP, and then now in Hyper we're creating this new thing that's just a kind of a HTTP server, and now when the listener, which is the generic TCP port, gets a inside the loop, when we get a request, and which could throw an error and cause us to crash or not to raise the exception. This is like raising an exception, basically. It causes the question mark is an operator that causes things to return the error immediately, which would be like raising an exception in other languages. Let connection equals HTTP dot serve connection. Okay, so now we're binding Hyper to Tokyo to the event server. And then with upgrades, which is the trick that allows it to upgrade to a WebSocket server. Looks like I don't have to, I don't see where I'm setting up the actual WebSocket part here. So hopefully that's just handled above. Maybe that's what with upgrades does. Oh, I bet the handle request is going to do that. And then wait. Now, why does it do this step? Connection await. So if the connection fails, we don't want to raise an exception. We don't want to break. We just want to serve the next connection. So if connection fails, then we're going to go back to the top of this loop. But this is all asynchronous. So basically this all gets spawned, right? The Tokyo spawn connection being the entire server, right? So the server is running. I'm sorry, my head's getting cut off. Server run the whole server in a loop. I'm guessing that's what's happening. Listener accept await. So we get, when we get a TCP/IP connection, we spawn the HTTP connection that is going to be persistent because it's possible to upgrade it. I'm guessing. That seems reasonable to me. This is nice. Like at one point, this was like 80 something lines of code. We boiled it down to, well, it says 64 here, but most, like many of them are these redundant empty lines, but that's okay. All right, so where do I call serve WebSocket? Probably from handle request again. So the handle request is seems to be the workhorse here. If hyper-tungstenite is upgrade request, then upgrade the request and spawn a serve WebSocket. But if it fails, error in WebSocket connection, print that. So ePrintlen, okay, so that's print to error. I've never used an ePrintlen before. And then otherwise okay, else okay. And now async function serve WebSocket. Okay, so wait. All right, so the only other thing it can serve is this HTML page. So if it's not an upgrade request, just serve that HTML. A new response from the body of index.html, or body from index.html, containing the body from index.html. And if we did this upgrade, now we're going to do serve WebSocket. And that was the line I wanted it to do. The transformation was just turn it to uppercase. Which, of course, is not what I really wanted to do. What I really wanted to do is now talk to the KIPC. But it is 12:30 at night here. I'm up late, but I don't mind. I'll be a little late for work in the morning, even though I'm working from home. But I don't mind because this was work. Yeah, I'm happy with this. All right, so that was a almost 4-hour stream of half of it. I think maybe only 2 hours. First 2 hours are probably about me talking about my past experiences, and now it's actually implementing a WebSocket server. So I learned some. So this was helpful for me. We didn't really get to see a lot of Copilot yet, but the ChatGPT stuff's like it did a good job as far as I'm concerned. It did things reasonably based on its picture of the world that is slightly outdated, given that Tokyo and all this stuff is still evolving and is still version 0. All of these libraries are. I guess Tokyo is version 1, but so I shouldn't blame Tokyo. It's Hyper, right? And Tungstenite. But this technique of just pasting in the updated docs like seems to work. Like say, here are the new docs. You figure it out. I didn't have to do any of that. I'm not aware of how much of this came from. Clearly, it remembered my original request to do this, and through every version, it was doing that. And so that wasn't in any of the docs. That came from my request, and it generated this thing. So it's interesting that it just like spontaneously rewrote this. Because like this was all on one line, and it said I was checking for the number 13 before. And it seems to have just spontaneously decided to update this, which is interesting. Oh, you can't see it. This thing. I'll move this back to the side. Yeah, like it spontaneously changed the HTML when I asked for the update. Like it completely changed the style of this. Like it was a big diff. It didn't just change the port that it was talking to. Git diff of the of source index.html. Like it changed. I had changed this formatting, but it and the indentation and all that earlier. And I didn't tell it that it had done that. So let's do it with the white space. Different. So it ignores the white space. But you can see it like changed the height and width from these units, from hard-coded units to viewport height, 80% of the viewport height, I guess. Input, match that size. These are things that I am not aware of, as I was not aware of those units or as a CSS user. I haven't stayed up to date with that. Yeah, and see it clean. It had the event key code equals 13, and now it's event.key is enter, which I think is clearer. This was a nice cleanup. I don't know what prompted it to update that, but here we go. All right, git add star and git diff cached. And that looks about right. Git commit -m serve HTTP and WS on same port and update HTML and clean up HTML. Hey, this, yeah, I'm happy with this. I have no complaints about this no complaints about this process or the results of this. I got something that I understand this code. I wouldn't say I've internalized it, but now I have an artifact that I can work with and that I can use as the basis of building the thing I actually want to build. And now I'm at the point where if I want to change this to, I want to serve 2 files, I can see that I'm going to be changing this line, and probably I should be reading it at runtime, or maybe it makes sense to hard code the files as a string. Like maybe this is a good technique. And basically now the strings are hard coded in the executable, so so maybe it's not a good technique, but I don't know. Like I'm okay with this. I think this has taught me the shape of a Rust program. I'm pointing at things on the screen again, aren't I? This has taught me the shape of a Rust WebSocket program. It's introduced me to some packages. I don't know. It's got me to a starting point that's like safe. I can work from here. So I'm happy with this. And would I have gotten here in 3 hours and 59 minutes without ChatGPT? Again, probably I could have Googled and found the example to begin with, and updated things as I went along, and as I ran into all these, oh, the documentation is out of date because I'm looking at the wrong version kind of thing. I think I would have run into a lot of those issues anyway, because because things are just changing, documentation keeps falling out of date. And that's a fact of life when you're a developer and you're working on something that's new. That does bring up the question, like, is this stable enough to use it at a company at work? Because chances are a year from now, this API will have drifted further, and then somebody has to stay on top of it. That means I'm making a commitment to maintain it and to update it, or let it fall out of sync. But then you lose the benefit of security patches, and you're creating a headache for the next person who wants to do this. But it will eventually stabilize. So it's just a factor to consider. So I will definitely report that back to my colleagues. I have not gotten to the point about doing the KIPC parts. May or may not do that in another stream this week, tomorrow or the next day or whatever. We'll see. Yeah, I got to think about whether I want to proceed with this now that I know that. My main concern is that these APIs are not yet designated as stable, and it's a WebSocket. And in general, I think the Rust community is pretty good at producing good designs, and these seem to be big name popular projects, so things might improve, might not improve. I'm glad I got this experience for me because I'm probably gonna do this. So I wanted to put Vex as my Rust project, and I've been interested in putting some kind of like WebSocket or web-based front end on it that would show like visual debugging, because I'm constantly making visualizations like graph. It's dealing with Boolean expressions, but they're represented as graphs, and so you want to visualize the data structures, and they update in real time, so you want to see the status. And it would be interesting to have a picture on the screen that was showing you like not like a progress bar, but like a progress bar that was like a graph that was being developed on the screen and simplified before your eyes. Although they're gigantic graphs, so you can't show the whole thing at once, but maybe you could interactively explore it or something. So I had selfish reasons for wanting to do this myself. And if I'm doing that anyway, and I have a secure, safe future at 1010 data, I'm okay with making a commitment to work on something that might change. Know that I'll be the one maintaining it. But that doesn't mean that that 1010 data is going to be like, I have a lot. Somebody's going to have to do the work of maintaining a WebSocket server, and that's just part of the nature of open source. Or I guess part of the nature of open source is that you have to deal with whatever upgrades come your way or whatever changes come your way. And then the alternative is doing it in-house, and then somebody still has to maintain all this stuff. And then maybe we don't get the benefit of security patches, though. But on the other hand, we won't have the same set of bugs, right? We won't have the same set of security holes. But part of using Rust is part of the rationale for using Rust is you want some assurance that what you're building is not going to be easily compromised. And I feel that is something that Rust delivers well. Anyway, 12:37 a.m. I'm going to bed. Thanks for watching. Yeah, I'll probably cut this stream into little pieces at some point and make some clips or something, but probably not tomorrow. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.